Hey, this is our DM Deep Dive number 3. Today our topic is how to make NPCs seem more real to players. That's a wide topic. There are a couple of ways to do it that I've experimented with. TLDR, give them problems and a quirk. I'll explain that in more detail in a bit, but first I'd like to mention the OGAS method. Occupation, goals, attitude, and stake. This is a way to know how an NPC will respond to a given situation. Oh, occupation. Everyone has an occupation, even if that is something that doesn't earn them money. You can infer a lot about someone from their occupation. If I tell you I'm a teacher of kindergarten students, or I tell you I'm a bricklayer, you'll likely have very different reactions or opinions of me based on my job. And this can be any job that existed in the general time frame that your story is set in, usually medieval fantasy, or it can be something from our world. People will relate to things that they already understand. I can tell you that you can tell that the person in front of you is a chandler, and you may not have any idea what that means. If I instead say that this person makes candles and soaps, you will understand in a heartbeat what kinds of supplies they would need and what they do with them. It's not always best, even in role-playing, to remain in-world. G is for goals. By this I mean either lifelong goals or immediate goals. Generally, lifelong goals are very different from short-term goals, and they could be in direct opposition to one another. If someone wants to eventually get married and have a house, but they spend every day of their lives on the same boat out to sea, then their long-term goals don't really matter as far as the party of adventurers are concerned. But some people have far-reaching goals that do matter, like the goal of spreading disease over the entire planet. That one kind of matters. Try to at least give your NPCs that you want to seem more real some kind of short-term goal, so that you know how they factor into the story and how the PCs are likely to respond to them. A, attitude. This means personal outlook overall. Generally, what is this person's attitude? If you've reached this point and you're not sure how to choose an attitude, look back at their occupation and goals. Does their occupation conflict in any way with their goals? If so, then they could be quite upset about it. If not, they could be happy-go-lucky. An attitude can also be short-term. Perhaps they just had a fight with their cow because it wouldn't let them milk her. She just kept smacking the NPC in the face with her tail. And cow tails are not clean. Moving on to stake. S, stake. What stake do they have in their occupation, goal, and attitude? How much do they care about those things? The intensity of their feelings will, in most cases, determine someone's actions regarding that thing, about everything that relates to that one thing, and possibly everything else in their life. How much does the existence of the PCs relate to the things they care about? It could be that they get very upset with the PCs even being in their town, because when adventurers come into town with their buckets of gold coins and gems, they completely throw off the economy of the town. And a business owner may be outright furious that the party is there at all. Now, all of that works well if we're talking about NPCs that you make ahead of time to use permanently or on a recurring basis. But what if you need an NPC for just a brief interchange, or to give the PCs something and then move on? Pick a conflict. This can be external conflict or internal conflict. Figure out something for them to be upset about. Angry, despondent, depressed, or frightened. Players will respond instinctively to these things. So it'll be easy for you to cue into how they're responding to the NPC and then respond back. Choose an emotion at random if you want. If it's silly, players freaking love that. That's fine. I made an NPC once who was afraid of dust. And he described the dust as being little dust people that from time to time rose up with little dust swords and dust shields and yelled, "Charge!" while the king of the dust people pointed at him with its little dust scepter. It worked. People remembered that dude. His name was Lyndon. Sorry, Liland. Lyndon was the bard who smoked a lot. Liland. Pick a quirk at random. It doesn't have to be from some brilliant inspiration. A retired ranger who still collects firewood because it makes him feel useful is an actual quality that someone might have. It could be that the way they speak is always with a whistle, or they frequently spit tobacco saliva onto the ground because they're always chewing on tobacco leaves. Also, pick a flaw. Now, by this, I mean a personal character flaw, like they hate children or they're always greedy. Perhaps they're always mean because they're in pain and no one wants to be their friend anymore. That's like layers of complication right there. So a conflict, a quirk, and a flaw. So we have ogas and kkf. A few additional tips in case they may help you. If you want a character that you will know how to roleplay, then base your character on someone you know, your NPC. I guess this works for players too. It'll be much easier for you to react instinctively the way that person that you know would, with very little thought. I recommend this specific method for long-term characters like the local wizard that the party will be visiting for the next 10 levels. And that brings me to this point. Make sure your main characters are at least as interesting as your minor characters. I think every GM has run into this at some point. It's annoying. If you suddenly feel inspired and you make a random goblin interesting, then it's likely that your players will keep Boblin the Goblin forever and ever. If you put interest in a character, the players will have that interest as well. If you don't want an NPC to stick around, don't make them interesting. And if you want to go the extra mile, make your characters change throughout your story. Show growth or decline as long as something is different. It shows a passage of time and that they do something while the PCs are doing other things. Have them wearing new or different clothing that looks out of place and interesting in some way. Or have them look older and worried about something. This in particular just screams, I have a quest to give you, to any PC around them. Finally, if you really want to reach for the stars and you're already quite experienced in making characters in general, then the next task for you to accomplish may be to make the introduction of those characters more memorable, as well as making their general actions anytime the PCs run into them dramatic or interesting. Even in small ways, one simple way to do this is to use indirect characterization. I know words. This means instead of saying, oh yeah, he pulls out some food from his pocket and eats it, add detail that the players can relate to and feel like they're really immersed. Like, he pulls out some sticky, dark brown piece of meat and begins to gnaw on it while talking to you, the molasses frequently dripping out of his mouth onto the ground or flicking at you as spittle while he keeps chewing. It's immersive. It gets people involved. It's showing, not telling. Well, that's all for today. I hope you take away something useful from this, and I hope you have so much fun in your games that it just makes your eyes explode.